So besides my best albums of the year video, I think that this is probably the most important video of sort of the list week thing, because this is basically the clusterfuck of everything that I didn't review in 2020, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ones I highly recommend, and the ones that I would leave to a dumpster fire and not douse out, some of which y'all have probably never even heard of that I can put on your radar if it's something that interests you, and others that were heavily requested but just slipped through the cracks for me personally. So I think this is one of those moments, shining examples of how I can just pack everything into one video and give my brief thoughts. And that's what they're gonna be. Very, very brief. Unless it's something that I think I have something substantial to say, just know that there is a particular reason I didn't review it at the time, and for every review that you see go out, there's probably 10 to 15 records that just get swept under the rug and never covered, but I did want to put a lot in this video. And if there are any that I missed that you particularly really enjoyed, either mainstream or underground, let me know in the comment section, because I might have heard them and I can maybe give my opinion of them to you specifically. Otherwise, are there any opinions of mine in this video that are controversial in your eyes that you very much agree with or disagree with? I'd love to hear it. I'm gonna try to go by these in a flurry to not waste any time, so let's get right into it. Protest the Hero with Palimpsest is up first. Great progressive metal release. It sort of slipped through the cracks for me in the sense of I knew it had a very big profile, it was making a lot of waves, y'all were requesting the hell for me to cover this one, but it didn't really wow me as much as it did a lot of people. It has definitely been a grower throughout the year though. Within the Ruins with Blackheart, one of my comfort bands, the bands that I have praised a lot on this channel, so y'all are probably wondering why the hell didn't he cover it, considering he's basically this niche's slut for metalcore music, specifically gent music. And while I do agree that I am a slut for that type of music, and I did really enjoy this release, there wasn't really much to add to the conversation. It's a Within the Ruins record. I think the production's actually worse than Halfway Human, but that's just me personally. Atramentus with Stygian. A lot of people were heavy on this record as a funeral doom metal record. I thought there were some better records this year that I particularly enjoyed, but I definitely get where people are coming from. This is a really solid funeral doom metal record, and if you enjoy the genre, you're gonna love it. It really does hit different, especially considering the current state of affairs that we're in. It's kind of hard not to be drawn to it as a musical and a sonic experience. Currents with The Way It Ends. This is kind of like Within the Ruins, one of those things where, why didn't he review this? This is right up his alley. Hate the production on it. I really hate the production on it. I think it's far too dense, far too compressed. Whoever mastered this record did a terrible job of just condensing everything, and that's about all I can say. It's a pretty solid record overall, and I understand why people enjoy it, but for me personally, I cannot get past the production on it. This is one of those really overhyped records that I didn't understand. Kind of with the next one, Katatonia with City Burials. This is one of those releases that people shit themselves over when it dropped, and I just didn't understand why. It did have the really awesome sort of gothic, doom metal, death metal hybrid mix going on that's similar to, say, a My Dying Bride, which I'll get to the Ghost of Orion very soon. I understand why Katatonia is so good at what they do, but it's just not particularly my breed of that style of music where it gets blended, and I think the production being so glitzy and over the top at times sells this record short a lot. Ihsahn with Telemark. I remember a period in time where I was really excited for this record. It sucks! And I usually really enjoy what Ihsahn does, but I just did not get anything out of this record, in my opinion. I get what Ihsahn was going for. I love him as a songwriter, but what he strung together on this EP, it just doesn't really do much for me. The Word Alive with Monomania, one of those metalcore releases that just play by the numbers. It's sort of the bread and butter motif that so many people get sucked into. Breakdown heavy, it has the progressive bits at times, and the alternative infused progressive metalcore instrumentals without the gent infusion, and it is so rudimentary and cookie cutter that it has about the same lasting impact as a piece of bubblegum that just bursts with flavor right away but then fades away the second the record's over. And honestly, I just want a lot more out of my music than that, specifically metalcore, because I know it can do a lot better than that. Dark Fortress with Spectres from the Old World. If there is a record that I kind of really wish I would have covered upon release, it's probably this one. But I think a lot of people got their ideas out of their records so quickly that I didn't really have much to add to the conversation. Great black metal record, pretty much it. There really isn't much I can add to the conversation other than the fact that it is a super solid, really well produced, slightly melodic, slightly technical, dingy, macabre, great atmospheric black metal record that deserved the attention that it got. At times it can be cookie cutter, it's a little bit long for its own good, but I think plenty overcompensates for that in the way it just feels so proficient. It's like a well-oiled machine that is just grinding. My Dying Bride bride with the ghost of Orion. I don't like my dying bride anymore. I have made that clear. And this is a release that a lot of you guys disagree with me on. I understand that. We're not always going to agree on everything. If I don't want to be a yes man, and if a reviewer doesn't particularly agree with something, I don't think it warrants going after them or the reviewer going after an audience that disagrees. I know a lot of you guys really fucked with this record. I think that it is so over the top, so melodramatic, and I felt a lot the same way about Macabre Cabaret, their most recent EP, and despite the backstory and despite the background of the band as a whole right now, I just cannot get anything out of this record. I feel like I can see why people would, but just not for me. And that's not even not enjoying the style. I enjoy doom metal and gothic metal and death metal, and I like when they're infused. Hell, I really like funeral doom metal, which is an even slower version of doom metal, but it more so lies with just My Dying Bride doing it so poorly nowadays, in my opinion. Burzum with Thuluen Mysteries. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I understand it's sort of like a soundtrack type of thing. Varg should have stuck to black metal. He's coming out with the shitty takes and the shitty music. He is really on point, and I'll give him that. You know, going 2 for 2 that easily with 2 really bad things, it's great. Next up, Nine Inch Nails released these 2 companion albums, Ghost, Together, and Locusts. They're sort of these ambient records. I kind of really enjoyed these when these first released because I personally really enjoy ambient music, but there's really not much to comment on because as ambient experiences, I think there's a lot better, but I do respect what Nine Inch Nails does here. Nine Inch Nails have always done a good job of incorporating atmosphere and melody and just a lot of ambient themes occasionally in their music, so I'm not super surprised they decided to do this. Plus, I think the background of the record is really admirable as well, so I think if you enjoy ambient music, this is something you should probably put on your radar if you missed it. Next up, Igorr with Spirituality and Disorder. Igorr's one of those artists that I just can't get behind and a lot of times don't understand the hype of. I appreciate how he mixes breakcore and black metal and experimental music into this avant-garde frenzy, but it's one of those releases that just has a really rough production behind it that makes everything sound so compressed or unequalized that really sells it short. Next up, In This Moment with Mother. In This Moment is by far one of the cringiest bands at large right now, and I hated this record upon release. It's one of those records I could have torn apart for like 10 minutes, but I didn't really see a point in that because there were just better things at the time. Nightwish with Human to Nature. I was actually kind of excited for this record because surprisingly, I do enjoy a lot of Nightwish's discography, but if this record isn't so damn bloated, I believe the runtime, if I remember correctly, is over 80 minutes long. If there are 2 genres that just cannot stay short for their own good, it's power metal and symphonic metal. Whoever thought it would be a good idea to let a symphonic metal go over 80 minutes long is beyond me. They should be fired immediately. Whoever was in the band that did that, I don't know what was going through their head. Danzig with Danzig Sings Elvis. This is sort of like the Nostalgia Critics' The Wall of 2020. I would say it's not as bad and not as offensive as that, but Danzig really shot himself in the foot here. Cirith Ungol with Forever Black. When this dropped, it got a lot of buzz in sort of the heavy metal and thrash metal scene. I think they stick to their guns and do the style justice, but there just wasn't enough here in terms of ingenuity, originality, unique flavor, some sort of spice in the formula that set apart themselves from their other releases, and that just sort of made me not want to cover it that much. But if you like the band, you're definitely going to like this release because there's nothing here that is really intrusive comparatively speaking with their other material. Killswitch Engage with Atonement 2 Sides for Charity. I appreciated this record. There really isn't anything that if you enjoyed or disliked Atonement, it's going to be any different. I appreciate that they were doing some stuff for charity, but this wasn't a record that really stuck with me past like the first or second listen to it. Antichrist Demon Core with Satan is King. Just another really hard-hitting outing from this power violence and grindcore band. They're one of those really high-octane performers that I always appreciate from afar, but kind of sort of the bubblegum analogy, they really don't give me that much to last with. I think a band like Nails does their style a lot better. Crossfaith with Species. I don't understand why so many people thought so positively of this. Crossfaith have sounded so much better so many times that their electronic style really does have to be turned up. I appreciate that they're sort of helping keep the style alive in the metalcore scene and keeping electroniccore breathing and keeping a pulse in its neck and arm, but I really want to see them do more in the future with it. Behemoth with A Forest. I really don't know what they were smoking on this record. I genuinely think this is one of those records that there's really nothing positive for me to say about it, especially coming off of how great their past 2 main studio-length albums were. I just kind of was scratching my head the whole time. Mushroomhead with A Wonderful Life. I appreciate that Mushroomhead's been at it for so long, but their brand of alternative metal mixed with sludge metal and some other styles have become so dated, and it really doesn't help that this record pushes way past when it should. It overstays its welcome hellishly, and I think it sort of exposes the fact that nowadays in their career, they're not nearly as good of songwriters as they were in their prime. Trapped with Shadowwork. You know, this is actually one of the best records this year, and I'm sad that I didn't give this a review. Oh, holy shit. The next up is Amur with Hindsight. I don't like Amur. I kind of put them in the same lane as Attila. Their overblown nu metalcore mixed with Shen and some alt metal sounds really just sounds so corny, cringier than ever. I don't like how they string together songs. Next up is Krallis with Mass Cathexis. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Really like how experimental, dense Krallis always sounds with their music. They have this sort of death metal style that sounds odd. It's an anomaly. It's like you're being spoken through a wall. I think their productions has gotten better throughout the years, and I appreciate their style as a whole, but I didn't really find anything in this release that made me want to cover it particularly. Svalbard with When I Die Will I Get Better. This is a record a lot of people really enjoyed. They are sort of this post-metal band that blends like post-rock, post-metal, metalcore, progressive music, as well as punk music into a really awesome sound, and I kind of do wish I would have covered this. I feel like I would have had a lot to say about it, but this is one of those releases that's getting a lot of acclaim for a good reason. This is one of those records that it gets very overhyped, but don't let that go to your head. Check this record out for yourself. Do your own research. It really is nice, and it's a cool assortment of sounds that you don't really see merged all that often, especially with the punk ethos being tossed into the mix as well. I know my dude Robert over at the Metal Meltdown loved the hell out of this record, so it's awesome to see that. Blue Oyster Cult with The Symbol Remains. Oh my god, it's kind of like that Pearl Jam record. It's a disappointment, and I love this band. I love their classic material, but I think people really overhyped it solely because they are who they are and not because of the music. I'll leave it at that. Zealand Ardor with Wake of a Nation. I appreciate Zealand Ardor. I have just never covered them. It's the weirdest thing. They just keep releasing things and I never cover them. I really think they are one of the coolest and most unique bands in black metal, if you can even call them black metal, because they have so many styles going into it. And the socio-politically charged lyrics, I think, really do work well, and it's something you don't see much, and I think the fact they're making waves and the black metal scene doesn't hate them entirely is a testament to how good they do it. Alright, here comes my hot take of the year. Mr. Bungle, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo. This, by far, out of any release this year, is the most overhyped record that I've heard. People lost their minds over this thing. And I appreciate, Mr. Bungle. They're awesome. They're experimental. They've been around forever. This is a really landmark release. It's a really important release. But just because you're making a comeback doesn't mean that the music itself is going to be up to snuff. It's going to be up to par. Because what I hear is not more than a really badly produced thrash metal record that bathes in the tropes more often than not, takes way too long to hit the throttle, and when it does hit the throttle, it's just underwhelming and does not hit the stride nearly as much as a lot of people said. I was so excited for this record, but I genuinely probably would have given it like a 3 or 4, if that. Come at me if you want. If you disagree, it's perfectly fine. Would love to discuss it. King 810, I'll put the title somewhere on the screen here because it's really long. I don't feel like saying the whole thing. Sort of like Amur, I really don't like the way that they are taking new metalcore and, putting it with gent, putting it with these other sounds. That's one of my things is I'm just not a new metalcore fan. I'm not a new metalcore fan for the most part. There's really not that many bands that impress me, and I think this record is a testament and a statement on just how cringy and corny the genre can be at times. Fuck the Facts with Plien No Sur sûr, and I feel like I'm mispronouncing that because I don't speak French, and I don't apologize for that. I am just an uneducated American, and you know what are you gonna do? One of the best grind records this year, they come out of Canada, another one of my friend Robert's favorite bands coming out of Canada, especially in the grindcore scene. I was really heavy on this record and had it on my radar to review, had a script sort of in the make, but it just sort of slipped under, but it's still really good, and if this happened to slip through the cracks and you've liked grind this year, it really does fit in well with the rest of the contemporary scene, so go check it out. Tombs with Under Sullen Skies. Oh, holy shit, I wanted this record to be good, but it's so long. It's so long for its own good. It's over an hour's worth of material. Who gave that the good slip? Who thought that was a good idea? Hatebreed with Weight of the False Self. Hatebreed's one of those bands that I respect a hell of a lot. For early metalcore and hardcore punk, they really do kick ass. I feel like this record sells their talent short. I know a lot of people loved the hell out of this record. I was not one of them. I thought it was underwhelming, underperforming, and very generic by their own standards. The choruses and just the general refrains ended up sounding so over the top and so on the nose. They've done a lot better in my opinion. And like I said, there are so many records I probably missed past this point, but these are just some of the more prominent ones that I wanted to talk about, put on your radar, and give my brief excerpt thoughts about. What are your thoughts of these records, and if there are any opinions that you particularly really agree or really disagree, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.